What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Bros podcast, episode number 43. I am Brendan.
And I'm Nate.
What's going on? All right, so before we get to this, I got a couple notes. We're going to be covering UFC 258, maybe a preview of this coming weekend's fights. One of my favorite fighters is fighting, so there's that. Anyway, couple notes from this weekend's broadcast I just want to bring up. So the fighter intro cameras and the post-fight camera seem to be using a different focus, like on their lens.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminded me of those lenses that they use in movies or TV shows where they make things look like models, like toys.
Oh, okay. I see.
I looked it up. It's called a tilt shift lens, and usually it's an ultra focus lens. So it's a single focus. It focuses only on one thing, and it gives it the perception that everything's really tiny, and it can only focus on one thing at a time. So I liked it. I thought it was kind of interesting. It gave it more of like a movie quality feel, like almost like they were doing like a. I don't know. I like the production quality of it. It looked cool, and they didn't use it for every camera. Like during the fight camera was the same as usual, but the pre-fight, post-fight, fighter intro, all that stuff when they were doing singles on the fighters, it looked like that. It was pretty interesting. And then second takeaway, ESPN Plus doesn't allow you to go back to a previous window where you were. It takes you back to the beginning and then loads all of the icons for all of their videos. Yes. I know we've talked about their user interface before. It sucks so much. And on top of that, when you're watching a video, when you go to like click on a certain part on that bar, like, you know, at the bottom of the timeline, it doesn't tell you the time that you want to click.
Nope.
Right? So if like I know I left off at 1:10, which, by the way, I sometimes have to do because ESPN Plus crashes. Like I know I left off at 1:10. I got to like guess at it.
Well, there's no like log or quick interface for continue watching.
Yeah, that's
which is the most annoying thing, because especially when I was going through like if I watch a 30 for 30 or when I was watching The Last Dance on ESPN Plus.
Yes, that was so frustrating.
Oh, cool. I've got to go do something and I'm halfway through this episode. I guess I'll just come back, and lo and behold, it doesn't even tell me which episode I was on.
No,
it doesn't. Like, let alone when I was in that episode. Yeah, that was, and it's like that's such a basic interface that almost every streaming service has. Yeah,
because
like,
ESPN
hire one person from Netflix.
No, you don't even need to. They're owned by Disney. Disney Plus has the excellent interface with all those features we just talked. Just use that one.
Just put ESPN on Disney Plus.
And they own Hulu. Disney is part of. They're all owned by Disney, right?
Owned Hulu. Oh, that's why. Duh.
Yeah. So Hulu has a great. Well, their interface has gotten so much better over the years, and they have a good interface. Continue watching. It's a little hinky when you go from device to device because of the commercials that they put in, but other than that, it's also excellent. So ESPN Plus, get your shit together, Carol. Good grief. Okay.
Why not just put everything ESPN on Hulu? I feel like that would make Hulu infinitely more popular.
You know what? I think we'd be. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you why they do anything the way they do it, why they lay out their page the way they do. Even if you pick your favorite sports, it's never at the top. It's always like, hey, are you interested in soccer matches from like Europe? Not saying I hate the sport or anything, but that's not my main focus. So no, I'm not interested. Please give me the UFC. Oh, scroll down 3/4 of the way to the bottom of the page and then scroll right 1,000 times to find the whole video instead of a single fight. Yeah, no problem. I love doing that.
Oh no, but you got to open up the other tab. Sorry, you weren't on the right page.
Oh yeah, you weren't on ESPN Plus. Sorry, you were on
ESPN.com interface. You got to go to ESPN Plus now. Yeah, I feel your pain. That's why I stopped using it.
Okay. All right. So UFC 258 was this weekend. The main event was Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Last week, I gave the advantage to Gilbert Burns for multiple reasons. I thought he had all the tools to get it done. I
don't think you were wrong.
Yeah. I'll just go over a quick recap of the fight. So in the first round, Gilbert catches him with the right hand, puts Usman on his butt. Then Usman proceeds to, so Gilbert throws a kick and then stumbles back and falls down. And then Usman spent a minute and a half or 2 minutes holding a leg of Gilbert Burns and kicking his butt. So as far as
allowing him the time to recover.
Exactly. So as far as like champion mindset and game planning, excellent. As far as like a championship strategy going, like it's not a good look as the champ is if that's your go-to move is kick a guy when he's down and you're the wrestler and you're afraid of the guy's guard. I get that. But like you're supposed to be the top pressure dominant fighter and you're literally just kicking him in the butt. And I'm not trying to diminish his skill set or say that like he didn't deserve the win or anything like that, but it wasn't a good look in the first round. Second round comes around, Usman makes some corrections, catches him a few times with a good jab, stiff jab, hits him with the right, rocks him, and then finishes him, actually puts him on his butt with a jab and then finishes up on the ground. So before I get into my takeaways, what was your takeaway from the fight?
Gilbert Burns is fast. Like I guess I just hadn't seen a comparison of what Gilbert Burns looked like compared to someone that fights like Kamaru. Like I expected Kamaru to be maybe a different fighter in the first round or put more pressure on him, and it seemed like Gilbert really had a little bit of an edge even in some areas of the striking. And it was interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, Kamaru kind of stuck to whatever his game plan, kept it really basic, stuck behind his jab until he had until he'd worn Gilbert down enough to where he was able to put him on his butt. And, people can complain about the stoppage however they want, but
I don't think it was a bad stoppage.
No, I don't think it was either. That was I had to go back and rewatch that one punch he landed when he followed him down to the ground.
It's the same punch he broke Kobe's jaw with.
Yeah, just a rocket of a punch, and he just echoes.
Pull back straight right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean it's pretty legit. I mean, Kamaru stuck it out, got the win, but I don't think it was a dominant win, and I don't necessarily think he displayed anything that makes him seem like he's a world beater.
Okay, so we can get to that, but there's one thing I do want to comment on. I mentioned it in my preview of the fight, and I think the biggest difference maker, obviously, so Usman has the skill set. He's the one fighting, yes. Right? So he's doing all these things. But I mentioned it before, and I said it was going to be a problem for Burns. Trevor Whitman, man, the last two fights have Kamaru Usman training with Trevor Whitman, same camp as Justin Gaethje, right? Trevor Whitman, he's also one of the sideline in the UFC. Yeah, but he's also one of the sideline announcers. Like he's one of the go-to guys for the UFC, like the broadcast team. So they'll go to him, like he's their on-staff coach, right? And he'll give his input during fights and be like, "Hey, Trevor, what does this guy need to do? What do you think about this cornering, how that kind of stuff?" So he has not only the respect of the people he trains, the people who have to fight against his fighters, but he also has the respect of the UFC brass as well as the UFC community. This guy is fantastic. He also trains Rose Namajunas. Trevor Whitman, I think, was the difference maker in that fight. I think if you go back to the first time, or when Kamaru Usman was coming up, right, and he went on the win streak of beating people, you put that guy against this Gilbert Burns, and he gets destroyed because he was really one note. Walking forward, he had power and all, but I think he would have gotten destroyed by Burns. And we saw a little bit of that in the first round. And then the second round, Trevor Whitman in the corner told him, he's like, "Hey, we got to put stuff together, keep it sharp." You're killing him. He's mentioned stuff like you're killing him with your patience. Don't rush in there. Take your time. And I think that was a huge factor. Obviously, all the credit in the world goes to Usman for getting the job done.
100%.
But having a coach that not only knows all the things, but that you listen to and you have respect for, right? That's a big difference because a lot of these coaches, they'll tell you, like, get in there, do this, do this, do this, and then the fighter won't do it. So Usman, again, more credit to him. He's a very coachable fighter, it seems like. It's just one of those things, it's going to be a nightmare matchup for anybody else. I don't, as of right now, I don't know who's next in line. But back to what, anyway, congratulations to Kamaru Usman. Fantastic. And he was more humble in this win. I loved it. It was good. I'm glad there was no bad blood.
And I wasn't trying to say anything necessarily to discredit it. I'm a huge Kamaru Usman fan. I think his work ethic shows. I think,
Absolutely.
his capabilities show. Like he's the champ for a reason, and he's been, an incredible champ. Very few UFC fighters in UFC history have as many title defenses as he has.
Yes.
No discredit to him or anything like that.
Tyron Woodley had 3 defenses.
I know, but arguably, Kamaru Usman's title defenses have been better fights than Tyron Woodley's. He's out there and he clearly
better fight, yes. Against better competition, I would argue no.
Yes, and I'd agree with you on that for the most part.
I'd say 2 of them were really good. One of them was a circus.
Yeah, but I think the division still has a lot for him to deal with. More so than other divisions and some other champs in those divisions. I think there's still a lot of unanswered questions in the welterweight division.
Maybe. So something else I want to touch on that you briefly mentioned is his status as, the greatest champion or whatever. So there was Rogan threw it out there, and he has a tendency to get caught up in the moment, as do a lot of people. That's human nature. Saying that he's already the greatest welterweight of all time. No, he's not. Stop it. Please stop. No, absolutely not. It's GSP.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
Kamaru Usman could have 3 more wins as champ and still not be touching what GSP did.
Depending on who those people he fight.
I don't even care. It's what GSP did, fighting as much as he did. Right? Usman has fought basically once every 8 months. I mentioned that in the preview as well. Part of being a dominant champion is not only winning, but taking on challengers and in a timely manner. You can't wait and fight once a year and say, oh, I held the belt for 6 years. Well, you only fought 6 times in those 6 years. Yes, technically you have the calendar 6 years under your title reign, but it's not the same as someone like Anderson Silva who's fighting 2 or 3 times a year, or GSP. So
I don't really care about years. I care about how many defenses. That means more to me than years. Honestly.
Yeah, but that also plays
and
into
also
it, right?
Who the title defenses were against.
Yes, right. So as far as looking at who he's gonna fight next, there's some push to have Jorge fight him again. I don't want to see it. I don't
think Jorge's earned that.
No. We saw how it went the first time. If he can keep it on the feet and keep him off of him, Jorge could land some shots and put him away, and that could be interesting, and that's fine and all, but Jorge needs to get an actual win. Just fight Leon Edwards, because Khamzat Chimaev is out of that fight. So just fight Leon so we can get him a goddamn fight.
No offense to Jorge, but I think Kamaru chose that fight because he thinks it's the easiest fight to generate the most pay-per-view buys.
Sure. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
If you're Kamaru Usman, if you're just trying to say, hey, I want another win under my belt this year, and I want to get as many pay-per-view buys as possible, yeah, Jorge Masvidal makes perfect sense. I get why he'd call him out, but I don't think that's the right challenge, and I don't think that's who deserves the next shot.
So, based off the rankings, I'll just run through them for those of you guys who are just listening or not as familiar. So, obviously, Kamaru's a champ. Gilbert Burns is ranked number 1. We just saw how that ended. Colby Covington's number 2. Leon Edwards 3. Jorge Masvidal 4. Stephen Thompson 5. And Chiesa 6. Tyron Woodley 7. And everybody else is not a non-factor right now. So, Michael Chiesa's coming off of a big win against Neil Magny. Right? Stephen Thompson's coming off a good win against Jeff Neal. We got Leon Edwards, who hasn't fought in 2 years at this point, I think. Right? And Jorge Masvidal, who's coming off the loss to Usman. So if they are going to wait for the division to kind of settle out, or settle down, I would say match up Stephen Thompson with Chiesa or Masvidal or Edwards or Covington, right? So, or Covington fights Edwards or Chiesa. Okay. And then the winner of whatever one of those fights happens first, right? The winner of that fight gets the next title shot. I wouldn't even put Thompson against Masvidal. If I said that, I didn't mean that. So, as far as the welterweights go, it's very good in the top 5 minus Masvidal. I don't think he's a bad fighter, but he does not belong in the top 5.
If you flipped where him and Michael Chiesa are, I'd probably
just bump him up. Stephen Thompson ranked 4, Chiesa 6, Masvidal, or sorry, Chiesa 5, and then Masvidal 6. That would be.
I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, so there's still interesting matchups. One of the bummers of this is we don't have fresh matchups because now we have to wait for the division to move around a little bit before someone fights Usman. Burns coming off this loss. Maybe I'd like to see him fight. Maybe him versus Masvidal, right? He's just coming off a knockout loss or a TKO loss, so maybe it's going to take a little bit. Him versus Thompson is interesting. Him versus Chiesa. I think he smokes Chiesa.
Yeah.
So there's interesting matchups with Burns, and that's why I wanted him as the champ, because I think he has some fun matchups that we haven't seen already. Whereas Usman has already fought Covington, Burns, Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, Damian Maia. He hasn't fought Magny yet, but Magny's all the way down at 9, and he's coming off a loss. So there's Burns had all the tools to beat Usman, and we saw it in the first round. He just wasn't able to capitalize on it, and I think a big part of that was that missed kick, falling down and giving Usman the time to recover. If he
was still on his feet and he hadn't thrown that kick, he probably would have.
Yeah, I mean,
sealed it. Yeah.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Should have. Yeah.
But we could have been dealing with a, Chris Weidman, why'd you throw that spinning back kick type of deal.
Yeah, true. So I do want to clarify something. I said Masvidal is the easiest big pay-per-view. I don't necessarily think that's the big pay-per-view for Kamaru, though. I think if he called out a rematch with Kobe, I think that would be the biggest potential pay-per-view, at least of the immediate challengers for Kamaru. But I also think he recognizes that's a risky proposition.
Yeah, how good is Covington? You want to talk everybody again? I don't like him. I don't like his attitude.
I don't like the show
theatrics. I don't like that stuff, and I don't want to see more emotional crap and negative publicity build up between him and Usman anymore. But how good is Covington?
Yeah, that's my point. I don't necessarily think that's a risk he wants to take, which is why I think Jorge Masvidal makes the most sense for him trying to take, not an easy pay-per-view or an easy payday, but the easiest one available.
Yeah, because Stephen Thompson's not going to make him any money, and that
is the worst case scenario. That's the most dangerous and least rewarding fight you could possibly take is a Stephen Thompson fight.
I would say Leon Edwards might be, but it's hard to know. But Leon Edwards might be the least rewarding because
from immediate data how dangerous Stephen Thompson still is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just saw what he was capable of. That's not someone
so good.
That's not someone you want to just stand there and try and jab. That's
okay. Co-main event. We had Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber. Back and forth in the first 2 rounds, but Alexa Grasso really showed what she was made of, I guess, in the flyweight division. Barber really came on strong. Grasso finished really weak, and Grasso came on strong in that 3rd round because she had to, right? So, maybe if she's up 2 rounds, it's she slows down in the 3rd, and we see a reversal. But the point is, Barber was swinging for the fences. I think she has what it takes to be a contender at flyweight, but she's just not putting it together right now. And Grasso coming up a weight class, looking really good. And to be honest, my biggest takeaway from this fight, watching it, was holy crap, these two women are amazing fighters, and this could have been a title fight if Shevchenko didn't exist.
True fact. True fact about flyweight.
Like these two could fight for a title, and they might be pushing Grasso up there because I think probably the next challenger is going to be Jessica Andrade. Yeah, but there's a good chance that Alexa Grasso. Yeah, I mean, she's ranked 15 right now, but she's going to jump quite a bit because Macy's at 10.
Yeah.
So she'll probably jump up into the 10 spot, maybe even ahead of Roxanne Modafferi because she lost a couple weekends ago. She could even jump ahead of Jessica Eye. Yeah. So I don't think she's going to get the next title shot, but one more win and she could get a title shot.
100%.
Okay, cool.
All
right. So we had a middleweight fight.
Still in the game.
Kelvin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch. So I took notes for these ones because I felt like I've been pretty lazy, like just going off of memory. So as I was watching, I was taking notes of the things going on to make sure I got everything. So, one, Gastelum kept the pressure on and out-wrestled Heinisch, who is a natural middleweight, a big, heavy wrestler, and Gastelum was able to control the fight pretty much. There's some reversals, but and then also I noticed Kelvin looked really slow.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't his best performance.
No, but he still beat Heinisch.
He got the win.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that was one of the worst wins I've seen from him, and he still got the win against a top 15 opponent. So he's back in the win column after two tough fights. I think he lost to Darren Till and Jack Hermanson. So he might stay at 9, but he could jump ahead of Uriah Hall. That's a good fight. Him versus Uriah Hall again.
Just as you say, I was like, yeah, I'd run that.
So Hall fought Gastelum for the Ultimate Fighter season. I forget what season it was, but that was the finale, and Gastelum ended up winning. Hall's a much different fighter. Gastelum's a much different fighter, so that could be fun.
Yeah.
But
I'd headline a fight card with that, or a fight night with that.
Just looking at Gastelum, he's just such a nightmare for everybody in the middleweight division. Like he has a solid chin, so he's hard to put away. He's a great wrestler, and he has really good cardio. And not to mention, he's also a good striker. Not the best striker, but good. And that's a nightmare matchup for everybody in the top 10.
He will always be one of the hardest paychecks for you to earn.
Exactly. So now you're like getting his way back to the title, or a second fight with Israel Adesanya, or Whitaker's fighting Costa coming up. So if Gastelum said, I'll cut weight for that and I'll be ready to step in, I'd be down with that. I'd watch him versus Whitaker Costa. I think he is. Costa has a lot of skills, but Gastelum is
that's not a good fight for Costa.
Yeah, I think
for a lot of the same reason I always wanted to see Gastelum fight Romero.
Exactly.
I think Costa would have a rough night with Gastelum.
Yeah,
and nothing against Costa. Does. That's just just not a great
matchup. So I think he did a really good job, and keeping his career moving in the right direction. Let's see, who do we got here? Let's see, Ricky Simon versus Brian Kelleher. Kelleher kept going for guillotines instead of fighting off takedowns. Mm-hmm. And after being taken down over and over, he stopped flowing with his strikes and just started looking for the perfect shot, and he just never caught it. So, Simon looked great. He has great cardio, and he's a really good wrestler. It's unfortunate that he's had the ups and downs that he's had because, let me look, because I think he could challenge for a title in that division. Yeah, they fought. Yeah, They fought at featherweight. So I think normally he fights at bantamweight.
Mm.
Yeah. So he had quite a few.
Yeah.
Right. So when he entered the UFC, he beat Merab Dvalishvili. I think that was a garbage win because Dvalishvili was that's where Dvalishvili was kicking his feet at the end of the third round, and then the fight was over, and they still called it a submission win for Simon. So I technically don't think that was a win for him, but it's on his record.
I remember something from one of the broadcasts I saw of them talking about doing a run back of that after Simon won.
Yeah, I mean they could.
Yeah,
but there's not a lot of talk because neither one of the guys is like a super popular fighter.
Yeah.
He beat Montel Jackson, Hani Yahya, and then he got knocked out by Uriah Faber. Not great. Lost the decision to Font. Then he beats Ray Borg, Gaetano Perello. That's whatever. And then Brian Kelleher. He's never really had like terrible losses. And he hasn't been finished. He's only been finished in the UFC once. He's only got 2 losses in the UFC at featherweight. Well, I think at bantamweight. So, man, I think he needs to be back in the rankings somewhere. If it's not at featherweight, maybe it's bantamweight. He's so good. He's a great wrestler with good cardio, decent striking. And he puts it together most of the time. So I wouldn't mind him moving into absolutely the top 15, but more so the title contention type of deal because he's got the prototypical UFC champion build right now, which is great wrestling, good cardio.
Yeah, that's probably the best base to have if you're coming into it.
The opening fight in the main card was Maki Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. Funny note afterwards, Julian Marquez
missile crisis.
Yeah, like he used his time post fight to ask Hannah Montana, what's her name?
Miley Cyrus?
Yeah, he asked Miley Cyrus to be his Valentine, and then she responded to him on Twitter, said if you cut an MC into your chest, like into your chest hair, she's like, I'm all yours. Weird call out, but it got his name out there on Twitter, so it is what it is.
That reminds me of like the super cringe, like I think it was 8 years ago or something, that a bunch of Marines were asking like, what's her name? She was just in a Super Bowl commercial from that 70s show.
The Russian one?
No, Ashton Kutcher's wife.
Yeah, she's Russian.
She's Russian? Oh, yes. What's her name? All I can think is Miley Cyrus, and I know it's Mila Kunis. That's it.
Yeah, Mila.
Yeah.
Mila. That's a Russian name. She's Russian.
I never really connected it. But anyway, like some Marine asked her to the Marine Corps ball, and then a female Marine asked Justin Timberlake, and then there's a whole like big thing of Marines asking celebrities on YouTube to the Marine Corps ball. Anyway, yeah, that just reminds me of just like a rehash of that 8 years later. It's just so weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no thoughts on it. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So one thing that happened in that fight, the referee missed a groin shot that Marquez nailed Pitolo in the nuts, right? And then Marquez lands a few. This is the third round, so he lands a few good shots. And those shots definitely wouldn't have landed, and that fight wouldn't have gone that way. And then he gets the finish in like the last minute of the fight.
Yep.
So I'm not saying he wouldn't have won that fight, but it's one of those times where if you get hit with an illegal strike or an infraction in your direction, there should be a review process. Just be like, hey, this led to this. Can we like reverse this to a no contest because clearly something happened that was illegal?
What if there was a way to do the fighter that has the win maintains the win, but you essentially get the loss taken off your record?
Yeah, that would be fine because then you don't deal like it doesn't negatively affect you. It just positively affects the other person.
Yes. So it's like, all right, cool. I don't have a loss on my record. Like not even a no contest, but maybe just like a complete, what's the word? Like just strike from your record.
Yeah, I mean, there would still have to be some sort of documentation that said you fought, but there should be a way to contest those without penalizing the winning fighter.
Yeah.
But maybe not because think about this.
You do a split no contest, basically.
Well, hold on. Think about this. If you were to land an illegal strike, okay, that's effectively cheating. So it's no different than you not passing a drug test. Okay, so yes, there are rules in place. So if you were to poke someone in the eye and the fight ends because of that, there are stipulations. Yes. There are stipulations that lead to a victory for you, the opponent, or a no contest based off of how much of the fight has transpired, what commission they're fighting in, those kinds of things. So there's already rules in place for those things. What I'm looking for, less so, is like a unified system, but I mean, partly. It's just I would like a more robust way to contest infractions, just because losses affect your career so much.
Purposeful infraction, though.
Actually, intent should have nothing to do with it because it's all about the effect of the strike. So whether or not I intend to poke you in the eye, it's about what happens afterwards. So if I poke you in the eye and you're blinded in one eye, right? Or you can't see, then it doesn't matter.
If you're going to strike a win, I think there should be a certain level of intent.
Or maybe multiple infractions in the same fight.
If it's like, for this example, say, all right, we have one incidental groin or one groin strike, which appears to not have been intended. You can argue either way. It's not like this person was hitting him in the groin like, fuck, what was that boxing match where someone got struck in the groin like 8 fucking times and started a riot? I can't remember. But yeah, like, there's a difference between that and like, all right, this one strike, which you can make a clear distinction of how the fight was before the groin strike and the fight was after. All right, as a board, you can make the case for striking the loss from the record, but maybe not the win. Versus if you have someone who is, all right, 2 eye pokes that got caught, a point was already taken away, and the third one, say, got missed, and you bring that to the board, all right, then you can make a stronger argument for not only striking the loss, but also striking the win.
Yeah, it just because there's a process. If an illegal strike lands, you are given 5 minutes to recover. Okay, He was not given those 5 minutes, therefore taking away any ability to recover from that illegal illegal strike. So he wasn't given his due process. So now he's being penalized because the referee didn't happen to see it. And now referees don't make the best calls, and but this isn't a subjective thing. This is objective. There was a clear illegal strike that was not called, and because of that, we saw things land afterwards, right? In those if you really want to get technical, in those 5 minutes, anything that happens can be erased. If you want to be super stringent about it, because those 5 minutes are his recovery time.
Yep.
Now he can cancel that or end it early if he chooses to. Right? He has the ability to do that, but he wasn't given the ability. Therefore, anything that happens in the next 5 minutes doesn't count.
All right. But now you're penalizing the fighter that won for the ref's incompetence.
Maybe we don't take the win away from him.
That's what I mean. Like, in this case, I could see a governing board having the argument to strike the loss, but not necessarily the win. But I just think there should be some leeway, and there should be a clear distinction between, all right, I'm trying to overturn a loss versus trying to overturn a win. And there being different levels of, whether it be burden of proof or circumstances for each one.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there should be a way to, at the very least, overturn a loss while still not penalizing the other fighter if it was organizational issues or ref issues or whatever it may be.
Okay. I don't want to see... I hate seeing this stuff.
I don't want to see cheaters get away with shit.
Well, it's not. Yes, but it's not even just cheaters. I don't want to see someone take a Like, I don't want to see someone's career go in the wrong direction because of something illegal, right? That they had no control over, right? Like, you can't defend. You're not trained to defend against eye pokes or groin strikes or elbows to the top of the head or the back of the head or anything like that. You're also not trained to stop people from grabbing the fence because those are all illegal things. Therefore, you're never going to be you're never defending against those things, right? Like, that's the referee's job, is to say, hey, one of those things happened, therefore you get 5 minutes or a position change, or, the other fighter gets a warning. So I just don't want to see this guy. I don't want Maki Pitolo is the guy who was kicked in the nuts, by the way. So like, I don't want to see Pitolo take a loss and then get thrown back down.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because of something that he had no control over.
And I think he absolutely should have a pathway to where he gets his loss overturned, potentially, or at least have a governing body evaluate it to where, all right, say, I don't know what win streak he was on before this, but say he's on a 2-fight win streak. All right, he's still on a 2-fight win streak. This fight is stricken as a no contest from his record, and he still continues forward as such.
Well, here's another thing, right? So he's on a 3-fight losing streak. So now he could lose his job in the UFC.
And this should be, once again, another good reason why he should be able to not have this loss on his record, to where he can go, all right, I'm on a 3-fight losing streak, but now at least it's not 4. Yeah, at least I have another. I'm basically at the same standings I was at before this fight.
Yeah. So he had a submission loss to Darren Stewart, a decision loss to Impa Kansangane, and then he got submitted by Julian Marquez, right? And that's the thing, is like, there's only 43 seconds left in the fight when he got finished, and if that fight goes the distance, he could have got that decision. It was competitive enough to where he could have got the first 2 rounds or even the 3rd round without those strikes being landed. Maybe he still would have got the loss, but the thing is, like, it was out of his control.
Yes, there were circumstances in the fight which were against the rules that, impacted the ending of the fight.
And here's another thing. Fighters who are, I wouldn't say more tough, but fighters who don't complain and don't play up injury or play up illegal strikes are penalized more heavily, because, like it or not, I can show you examples in the past where someone acts as if they took an illegal strike and the referee says, oh, okay, stop it, even if the referee didn't see it. Right. Yeah. So
I've definitely seen the whole grab the cup, look at the ref and grab the cup after a leg strike that was not even close,
or a gut strike. And the thing is, that person doesn't get punished for lying.
They probably, they should.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there should be some sort of like immediate review going on, or someone says like, hey, that was not an illegal strike, continue. And I think that has happened before. But if you act as if you were like, who is the biggest transgressor?
Should that be an immediate point?
Not necessarily, because if you feel like if you get punched in the eye, right, and it's a knuckle, that's not an illegal thing, but you feel like you got poked. So now you can say like, oh, dude, he poked me in the eye. Stop it, stop it, stop it. The referee slows everything down and then gives you your 5 minutes. So they could have an immediate review.
Let's say groin strike. Should faking a groin strike be an immediate point?
Yeah, why not?
Because that, depending on how that fight is going, like, even if the video comes up and it clearly shows that the person wasn't striking the groin, you bought yourself probably 20 to 30 seconds of rest.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Like that, and that can drastically influence the direction of the fight. And we've definitely seen that in the past, where someone claims a groin strike and clearly on video it didn't happen. I would probably be okay with an immediate point.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would. It's a fine line. I understand, because the eye poke is bad.
I'd say eye poke would be a warning then point, but groin strike I would call an immediate point, because that's
Well, no, I wouldn't give him a warning for calling an eye poke because you can get punched in the eye with a knuckle, and it feels like there's no difference between getting poked in the eye and getting punched with a knuckle. Like it feels the same, and it's hard for you to know. So if you go back and look at the video and say like, nope, that was a punch, keep fighting. And we have immediate review. We don't have to take 3 minutes to look at it. We have 10 seconds. Takes 10 seconds. The guys in the guys in the truck can pump that video in and be like, hey, that was not an illegal strike, continue fighting. And then as far as like groin strikes go or illegal strikes to like a ground opponent or something, like if you play that up, like if someone knees you in the chest and you act like you got hit in the head when you're grounded, right? You can be like, oh, I got hit in the head, and they'll be like, oh, well, that's an illegal strike. If they go back and review it, that strike could be a point deduction for the person who threw it. And if it's not an illegal strike and you called it that and you're lying, you should get a point deduction. Because
Absolutely.
Not only are you taking more time when you shouldn't be allowed to, you're also like trying to get a point deduction from the other person. Like that's terrible. It's the same way in the NBA or
NFL challenging a play.
Well, no, I was going to say like in the NBA, like you get penalized for flopping.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is like if someone doesn't touch you and you just go flying, they can like they made a big deal of it mainly because of like LeBron James and the Heat when he was on them or on that team. They were notorious for flopping, and floppers prospered. That was the way to get extra free throws. That was the way to get people off the court, and eventually the NBA put a stop to it. They're like, hey, if you flop, you're going to be the one getting the foul. So if you're a flopper in the UFC, like you should be penalized for that.
An immediate penalization.
Yeah.
Like just send that clear message of this is not a strategy worth even thinking about trying.
Yeah, it's good news. The good news is we don't have a lot of people that do that anymore. I don't see that very often. That's kind of been weeded
out a little bit. I feel like behind the scenes.
Josh Koscheck, he's the one who did it. Josh Koscheck, he was on the ground, and then somebody, I forget who he was fighting, threw a knee, and then he was like, oh, like acting like he was out of it. The knee totally missed him. It didn't even touch him. He was just straight up lying. And it like the announcers, everybody saw it, and they're all booing. Everybody's booing at him. Koscheck was a turd. One more fight I want to touch on: Diego Lima versus Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad's fantastic, such a good fighter. He's 18-3. He's had some losses that he hasn't looked great in, but for the most part in the UFC, he's been phenomenal. Like he lost to Alan Jouban way back in the day. Like that was his first fight in the UFC. That was his first loss, was Alan Jouban back in 2016. His next loss was against Vicente Luque in 2016. Right? He beats Randy Brown, Jordan Mean, Tim Means, Chance, Ray Contra. Like, okay, whatever. He loses a decision to Jeff Neal. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Jeff Neal's a top 10 fighter. Right? This is the guy who just went 3 rounds or 3 or 5 rounds with Stephen Thompson, right? Then he beats Curtis Millender. Okay, Takashi Sato, whatever. He submits him. Lyman Good, that's a good win. And then now Diego Lima. So in the UFC, he is, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's 10-3 in the UFC. Pretty good record.
Yeah.
Pretty good record. Yeah, so I think that's at welterweight too. So he's one of those guys. I don't think he's even is he ranked? Oh, he is. He's 13. Okay.
So he's on the cusp out there.
With that win, I think he deserves a step up in competition again. I would throw him to Neil Magny.
Damian Maia, maybe?
Damian Maia says he's retiring. He wants one more fight and then he's out. Tyron Woodley, if you want to kick Woodley to the curb and give Muhammad some, and if Woodley ends up knocking him out, maybe we see a resurgence from him. But that's pretty much it. I wouldn't throw him in against the top 6. So Vicente Luque is also ranked above him. I don't know if I want to see that rematch right now. So anyway, and then the other thing I want to touch on is Diego Lima. Obviously, Douglas Lima is his brother. Douglas Lima is the champ in Bellator, and he's a middleweight though. Or is he also a welterweight? He's a welterweight, not a middleweight. Yeah, so he's a welterweight. He's got the incredible kicks, and he's probably one of the best welterweights in the world. He just fights for Bellator, so nobody knows him. Diego, on the other hand, Diego's been up and down in the UFC. He's gone through a 3-fight skid, 3-fight win streak, 2-fight skid, 2-fight win streak, 1-fight win fight. So he's an up and down fighter, but he looked so much better. I think he only gave up 1 takedown over 3 rounds. If this was old Diego Lima, he would have been on his back the entire time, or submitted or lost, because he's had such bad takedown defense, and he looked so much better. I think what really let him down was his cardio. He just couldn't keep up with Muhammad's pressure. So as far as welterweights go, I think he'd be fun.
Another fight that I think would be interesting, and it's not necessarily some above him in the rankings, but him versus Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, because it's a name.
Yeah, it's a name. He would still jump up in the rankings from it. It would be a very solid person to test him against.
Or put him against Chimaev, because Chimaev was going to jump the line and fight Leon Edwards. So let's give Chimaev another person around his ranking. Why not? Because if Muhammad could put a stop to that hype train.
I don't know what the UFC's plan is with Robbie Lawler, but I think that would be a good test to boost someone's credibility if you're going to move them up into the top 10.
All right, so that's all I had for UFC 258. You got anything else?
No, decent pay-per-view.
I thought it was a good card. There's some fun fights. Nothing that blows your hair back. I think the next pay-per-view that's coming up with the 3 title fights on it is one that's definitely worth everybody's money. So, if you're just catching up with these and you're not watching these because it's hard to get out, not a lot of places are getting these, like Buffalo Wild Wings isn't buying the pay-per-views necessarily anymore because, not enough people are showing up. So it's harder to see them.
That's a business expense that's hard to justify when you can't exactly get people to capacity anyway.
But yeah, it was a decent card. Okay, this weekend got Curtis Razor Blaydes fighting. Finally, yay!
Hometown favorite.
Yeah. So he's fighting Derek Lewis, who's, I think he's tied or he has the most knockouts in the heavyweight division. We all know how this fight's going to go. We really do. So Curtis Blaydes is going to go for takedowns. Derek Lewis is going to stand up. If Derek Lewis can catch Curtis Blaydes, he might be able to knock him out. And that's how this fight's going to go.
Curtis Blaydes might also knock out Derek Lewis.
That's true. As far as ways to win, Curtis has more ways to win this fight. But Derek Lewis is notorious for being,
Derek Lewis can win this fight with 3 seconds left.
Yeah. And the worst part of it is Derek Lewis doesn't have to fight. All he has to do is sit there. Like, he doesn't have to bring the fight to Blaydes to win this fight. He can win on the judges' scorecards like he did against Igor. Or no, it wasn't Igor. Blagoyev. Oh, my goodness.
Either
way, Bulgarian fighter.
Derek Lewis has a very specific style of fighting, which is actually been pretty effective for him, and it's not an easy one to overcome. So it's a solid test for Curtis, and it'll definitely pump him up to where he's in the
Blagoy-Ivanov
for heavyweight championship fights if he wins this.
So a couple wins that I don't think Lewis really has. The Alexander Volkov one, obviously he knocked him out in the last 10 seconds of that fight. Volkov was messing him up the entire time. And we saw last weekend how good Volkov is, and he deserved to win that fight. He just made a stupid mistake. He could have just ran around the octagon for 10 seconds and won that fight. Why he engaged, hindsight 2020, we've already said that. Like, it is what it is. It's a win on Lewis's record. I don't think I don't think that's necessarily a testament to anything that Derek Lewis does. More of a testament to, like, if you make a lapse in judgment or do something really stupid, like run
Derek Lewis is dangerous until the final bell rings or
sure,
the fight is stopped. Like it,
but it's heavyweights. Everybody is.
But Derek Lewis is especially dangerous to the end.
Yeah. So a couple other ones. The win against Roy Nelson back in 2016, it was a split decision. He did not win that fight. You know, he landed like 3 good punches the entire fight, and Roy Nelson wrestled and grappled him and was in control of the entire fight. So I don't think he won that one. The Francis Ngannou one, it was one of the worst fights in UFC history, and he did win that one, but I don't think anybody won that one. And
that
he
fight
did not,
just shouldn't have happened. That's how I feel about that fight.
That way, yes.
Like Francis Ngannou just needed more time off.
Yes.
That fight should have just plain never happened because he didn't actually fight Francis Ngannou.
So he did not win, in my opinion, against Blagoy Ivanov. That was a split decision in his favor. Blagoy controlled the fight, did everything he was supposed to do, and still ended up on the wrong side of a split decision. So the takeaway from all of this that I'm trying to get at is that Derek Lewis can win fights on the judges' scorecards that he shouldn't be winning. You know, it's very John Jones-esque, you know, very well, he lost a lot of them on the judges' scorecards, but Yoel Romero-esque, you know, making so I think Yoel Romero was even more extreme. Like, he got split decision. There were split decisions that shouldn't even have been split decisions, right? Like ones that it's hard to justify this being a split decision. So there's a certain fight style in MMA, in the UFC especially, where if you do big looping movements, whether or not they land on the head or not, or the body or the shoulder, it means more to most of the judges. It's just what it is right now. That's what Derek Lewis does. And he doesn't go for takedowns. He doesn't really put out a lot of volume. He just throws big shots. If one of them connects, you can go out. If they don't connect and you don't put out a lot of pressure and you don't put out a lot of offense, he's still going to win that round because it looks like he landed a big shot.
He also doesn't necessarily pressure you, but he doesn't let you pressure him. He just kind of lets you come to him, but if you're not coming to him, he's not going to press the fight.
No, and that's very, again, Yoel Romero-esque, like where you just stand there and wait. So all of that being said, obviously we know who I'm rooting for in Curtis Blaydes, and I hope he gets the win and he finally gets a title shot after this. I don't know if it's going to happen because of the way the heavyweight division is.
I unfortunately think Curtis Blaydes is still 2 fights away from a title fight just because of how things are shaking up and John Jones.
I know. It's hard to argue with Blaydes' resume right now. His only two losses in the UFC are to Francis Ngannou. He has beat everybody else.
As an active heavyweight fighter right now, I think the only 2 people in the heavyweight division with a better resume than him, right at this moment, are fighting for the championship next.
Stipe and Francis.
Yep. I don't think there's, especially if he comes off this with a solid win, I don't think there's anyone else even close to being in line for another heavyweight championship fight. And he could sit and wait.
And that's the thing is Derek Lewis is being given this he's been given this opportunity against him after a win against Alexei Oleinik back in 2020 August. Right? So it's not that he hasn't fought in a while, but Alexei Oleinik is outside the top 10. So at the time, Alexei Oleinik was near, he was in the top 10, right? And he was submitting people, but I don't think if you asked anybody who knew anything about MMA or followed the UFC, do you think Alexei Oleinik is a title contender in the UFC? Or do you think he belongs in the top 5 or the top 10? I don't think you'd find a single person who would say yes empirically. Outside of the fact that he got wins against good opponents, like there's nothing wrong with that. And I always root for him because I think it's incredible what he does with that Ezekiel choke. And he's just a tough older guy. And remember when he outstruck Oh, crud.
I just think the heavyweight division has some issues, and it's one that the UFC is struggling to bring talent into and bolster people up. If not for Francis Ngannou, like, this would be a rough division.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's just
even without being champ, he's pretty much been carrying this division on his shoulders for a couple of years as a name and someone that people talk about in the heavyweight division.
Well, DC was obviously involved in that, and Stipe's done a really good job as, being...
Like, not to take anything away from how dominant Stipe is, but outside of Stipe and the DC fights, like, it's been a pretty rough go of things for the heavyweight division as a whole.
I just think, here's the thing. What kills me the most about this is I don't want to see Blaydes losing to Derek Lewis and then Lewis being given another title shot, because he
exactly
he was given one when he didn't necessarily deserve it against DC, and DC just took him down over and over again. Like, the guy in, like, if he fights Stipe, what do you think's going to happen? If he fights Ngannou, what do you think? Like, I think that fight against another fight against Ngannou, if Ngannou throws on him, Lewis is going out. He's been knocked out before by Sean Jordan. He's been knocked out by Matt Mitrione. He was finished. He finished by Mark Hunt, right? So he's obviously hard hitting. It's Mark Hunt, but still, it's not like he has, like, he's impossible to finish. It's just the easiest path to victory on him is get him exhausted and wrestle him. You can outstrike him like Volkov did and do that, but then, in the last round, maybe don't run face first and do a right hand. So there's a good chance that Blaydes wins this fight. There's a good chance that, he's still waiting. But if Derek Lewis manages to knock out Blaydes, I hate it, because Lewis is now all of a sudden in the discussion for the next title contender, which sucks, because if Blaydes wins and by wrestling, he's not. They'll give it to Rosenstruik if he beats Gane. Like, if Rosenstruik knocks out Cyril Gane, well, then now all of a sudden it's like, oh, Rosenstruik's knocking people out. Let's put him in for a title shot. Or Volkov. I wouldn't mind them running back the Volkov-Lewis fight.
Yes.
Or putting, actually, Volkov versus Rosenstruik is good because they haven't fought yet. So it's difficult for me to, like, I can't be objective.
I'm not actually excited about this fight.
No, like, I'm not. I can't be objective either.
I'm happy Curtis is getting a fight, kind of. I'm not happy about who he has to fight, and I'm not necessarily excited about the fight just because of how much Curtis has to lose.
Yeah, like, he has everything to lose
from
and
someone
nothing
that
to gain.
From someone that really shouldn't be in the conversation the same way Curtis should be.
Exactly.
Like this should be an eliminator against two people.
Yeah, because just a reminder, because I can run through it in my head, but I want to get the order correct. All right, so Curtis Blaydes has oh my god. So Cody East, Adam Milstead, Daniel Omielanchik, Alexei Oleanic, Mark Hunt, Alistair Overeem. Then he lost to Francis Ngannou in a really quick stoppage that shouldn't have been, but in 45 seconds of the fight. Then he finished. He beats Justin Willis, who came out of DC's camp, right? AKA, and he was like the next thing. They called him Big Pretty or whatever. And he was that fight. We mentioned it after the fight, but I don't know if you remember. Justin Willis was just talking all kinds of crap about Curtis Blaydes, talking about his speech, calling him stupid, all these negative things. And Blaydes didn't say a damn thing until after he beat him. And he's like, "That's right, big titty. Go home, big titty." And it's like, it's, and then everybody was mad at him for making fun of Justin Willis. It's like, screw all of you people. And then he knocks out Shamil Abdurakhimov.
Yep.
Knocks out Junior Dos Santos, and then out wrestles
the most takedowns in a UFC fight, if I remember correctly.
Yes, a heavyweight fight.
Heavyweight. I thought it was most takedowns overall.
It might have been, but
it was like 23 or something.
He exhausts himself against Volkov, and then he gets this win, right? A decisive win against Alexander Volkov, and all anybody does is make fun of him because he can't speak because he's exhausted after the fight.
Because he's exhausted from getting the most takedown. I want to double check because I'm pretty sure it's the most takedowns in any UFC fight, and he did it at heavyweight.
Yeah, and against the guy who is notoriously hard to take down. A guy
who got the most takedowns in a UFC fight against someone that weighs over 250 freaking pounds. Like.
Yeah, and Volkov is not easy to take down. He is not easy to put away. He's not easy to deal with. Volkov just outstruck Alistair Overeem. He didn't just knock him out with one big punch like Ngannou. He didn't get lucky in the last 10 seconds like Rosenstrike did. We're talking about just piecing up Alistair Overeem. He broke Overeem's nose and put together an amazing striking performance against one of the best strikers the heavyweight division has ever seen. Like Volkov is very, very good. That loss to Derek Lewis is the only mark on his record other than the loss to Blaydes. So if he doesn't lose to Derek Lewis, yeah. So he comes in, he beats Timothy Johnson, Roy Nelson, knocks out Stefan Struve, knocks out Fabricio Verdum. Then he loses to Derek Lewis, right? Then he beats Greg Hardy, which that's whatever. He loses the decision to Curtis Blaydes. Okay. Knocks out Walt Harris and knocks out Alistair Overeem. Honestly, his only loss in the UFC should be against Curtis Blaydes. We're talking about a heavyweight contender, like a championship level contender in Alexander Volkov, and Curtis Blaydes did. We were just talking about it
making sense if he got another title shot after his next win.
Yes,
and Curtis Blaydes just beat him.
Curtis Blaydes did whatever he wanted to him for 25 minutes.
Yep.
25 minutes, and all anybody did was make fun of Blaydes because he was tired. Nobody wants to talk about the performance he just put on by taking him down over and over again. Basically, kind of outstriking him in the first round, and then going for takedowns like he did with Overeem. Like he knocked out Overeem because he was going for takedowns and then ended up knocking him out. Blaydes is really, really good.
Oh yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, he beats Derek Lewis. Like he really does because he has what it takes to beat Derek Lewis.
But we're just both nervous about that 1 out of 10 times that Derek Lewis can deliver. Because when Derek Lewis does deliver that, it damages people's careers.
Yeah,
the fact that they get knocked out by Derek Lewis, like it does
just physically, but it also damages like all the.
It damages credibility when you get knocked out.
Yes, everything that he's built up over the last 4 or 5 years goes to crap because of this guy who gets to jump up and swing one hard punch. And yes, you can say whatever you want, like, oh, he shouldn't have got hit, or oh, he shouldn't have this or that. But if he was if he had been able to challenge for the getting finished by Ngannou, that's on Blaydes, right? You know, I think the first one when he poked when he got hit in the eye and his eye blew up a lot and they had to call it, that's what it is. But as far as I'm concerned. Since he's been, because it was a doctor stoppage. And that was his first fight in the UFC was against Francis Ngannou, and it got stopped because of the doctor.
All right, and it was 14 takedowns against Volkov. So he has the most for the entire heavyweight, and he broke the record that fight for most takedowns for the whole heavyweight division.
That guy, it's it's incredible what he does, and I want to see him get a damn title shot. I'm not saying if he were to fight Derek Lewis for the title and Derek Lewis earned a title shot, I wouldn't be mad about it. Okay? I wouldn't be mad if he lost to Ngannou again or if he lost to Lewis. It's just the fact that he's done all this work and can't get any credit for anything, doesn't get a title shot, and now if he loses, now he's set back years of hard work that he's put in, all because the UFC brass they wanted Brock Lesnar back to fight DC again. That's what we're talking about. That's why Curtis Blaydes can't get a title shot.
If Brock Lesnar asked for it and Francis Ngannou beats Stipe and is champ, Brock Lesnar would still jump the line of Curtis Blaydes and get another title shot.
Yeah, Stipe would probably get an immediate title shot rematch against Francis at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So best case scenario for Blaydes is
there are actually three people out there, even if Curtis Blaydes beats Lewis, that could jump ahead of him. Exactly. John Jones. Stipe, John Jones, and Brock Lesnar could all jump the line of Curtis Blaydes, even if he wins this.
Yeah, if he knocks out Lewis, it means nothing. If he out wrestles Lewis, it might even be a negative for him because of the way that people view that.
Think about the difference between how people viewed, and it also was the most takedowns in a fight in UFC heavyweight division history at 14. Think about the difference in how people treated him for that versus Max Holloway's last win. Because arguably everyone was talking about what Max Holloway did was like
against
just this transcendent performance. Knowing what you know about wrestling, you could make the argument that what Curtis Blaydes did was physically more impressive and even talent-wise more impressive. But he still doesn't even come close to getting mentioned in the same light after that performance.
No, because people don't they don't appreciate wrestling. It's just a means to an end for everybody. And it's fine. You don't have to be interested in wrestling, but you could at least appreciate the amount of effort. Like if you take a guy who's unbeaten in the UFC and you just shut him down for 25 minutes, that's impressive regardless of how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If someone were to do that to Israel Adesanya, if they just out-wrestled Izzy for 25 minutes, I don't care what you say. That's impressive. You'd be like, oh, all he did was want to hug him. Like, that's one of Derek Lewis's things. Like, after he got the win and everybody was
took one of the best fighters in the world and made it so they couldn't do anything.
Exactly.
That's
how in the world is that? Yeah, that's what Usman does. And there's like everybody hated when Usman was doing it too, So it's not, I'm not as impressed by what Usman was doing because there's been like the challenge that the challenge
is against other wrestlers.
No, absolutely not. And then on top of that, he also didn't do it against the top tier competition, especially after we look at like what Woodley actually was when he fought him.
Yep.
He's got this last win on the last two wins. The Colby Covington win, incredible.
Yes, one of
the Gilbert Burns.
I still say the Colby Covington win is his greatest accomplishment in his career.
Absolutely.
Like that was one of the most impressive wins he has.
His win against Gilbert Burns, fantastic. Can't take those away. The rest of his wins, he's taking down people who can't stop takedowns. And then the one guy who kind of gave him a problem in Damian Maia was one of the most boring fights ever. And the one compromised position that Damian Maia had on him, the ref stopped it for no reason. So what Curtis Blaydes is doing is as impressive, if not more impressive, because he's also doing it against guys who weigh 100 pounds more than the people that are fighting Usman. He's doing it he also weighs more, and he's probably got the same size heart, the same size lungs. So he's able to push through all that stuff, and he's dealing with dire consequences in which someone could knock him out with a jab.
Every time he shoots for a takedown.
Exactly.
He's putting himself at risk of getting knocked out.
And he's finishing people who might be up there in years, but as far as like the heavyweight division goes, that's everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, that fight's going on. I think Curtis Blaydes gets it done. I'm going to be rooting for him. I'm going to be really nervous during the fight, and I really hope he gets the win. Speaking of Alexei Oleinik, he's fighting on this regard too.
All right.
Kunitskaya's fighting. Caitlin Vieira.
It is an interesting fight of heavyweights and very small people.
Yeah.
We also got Andrei Arlovski at the bottom. It's featherweights and heavyweights. And women's
featherweight, bantamweight, women flyweight, featherweight, bantamweight, lightweight, featherweight. Andrei Arlovski. It then opens up with Sergey Spivak versus Jared Vendera, which is also a heavyweight fight.
Yep.
Well, the main card there's a middleweight fight in there, Phil Hawes. But yeah, bantamweight, featherweight, heavyweight. I think they had like a weight limit for like the planes and everything, so they're like okay.
Yeah, We got to balance this out.
They're like, we can't do any other welterweights or light heavyweights. It's heavyweights and featherweights, and that's it. All right. Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think it's a good solid wrap up of it. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Thanks everyone for making it this far as usual. Love y'all.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let us know what you like about the podcast, what you might disagree with. If you have different opinions than us, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, if you like my beard longer or shorter, let me know. My wife prefers it much shorter.
Yeah,
and then I like
you hate my mustache. I really don't care. I just started growing it out 3 days ago, so
I hate it. So there's that.
I hope you do. It's gonna get really distracting. I'm taking advantage of my current employment's mask mandate. To where I'm going to grow out the most ridiculous mustache I can over the next couple months.
Yeah, I've been there. I remember what that was like. I grew out like this mustache is still kind of thin. Like I can do this.
Oh yeah,
I can like twirl up the ends. But here's the thing: is I couldn't grow this when I was in. It was the thinnest, grossest looking mustache you've ever seen. It was disgusting looking, and I still grew it out.
Oh, because it's gonna get nasty.
Real big thanks. I should have done this at the top. Big thanks to Charlie for designing the new logo and the new banner. Thinking about putting together an intro scene and stuff like that. If you guys got any suggestions, it'd be awesome.
Better quality than our entire podcast is
anything else we've ever done. And we didn't even do it.
You put all the work we've done to shame.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope everybody has an amazing day. See ya.